Okie pokey weirdos, I'm Rev, and welcome to my world of cosplay shenaniganery. Let's chat about how I've planned out my cosplay of Jareth, specifically his blue coat from the As the World Falls Down sequence in the Labyrinth. With almost every cosplay, I start out with a Google Slides. I also offer this as a service on my Etsy shop if you'd like to do a little less research work. This helps me get the character's vibe down and better understand what I'm getting myself into. After adding some sparkle to Jareth's homepage, let's go through the reference images I've managed to find. This image was one of the best quality images I could find that was from the original material. Otherwise, it is a 1986 Jim Henson movie, which is not the best quality, especially since this was a dream sequence as well, and not all images are the clearest. I even tried getting some behind-the-scenes images because I was desperately trying to figure out how long his coattails were. Eventually, I moved on to taking screenshots from the music video on YouTube so that I could get some better images of all the bedazzlement on his coat, as well as the different shapes and scenes that he has. I even got some images of the action figure that was created based on this design. But it bugs me a little bit because the metallics are silver in the original and this action figure's design is in gold. Little off, I'd prefer silver anyway. Finally, to get some decent images of this costume, I pulled photos from a site where the images were taken at the museum when this was on display. Helped so much, figured out how long the coattails were, just at his ankles at the longest. It also made me realize that his coat lining is white satin, not black, but I will be using black satin because that's what I bought. I can always change it out if I decide I don't like it, but I usually prefer a darker color palette personally. Otherwise, I am an absolute rainbow. With the museum images, I could finally get a good look at all the bedazzlement down his back and on the cuffs, as well as what his cummerbund actually looks like, because it's really hard to see in the film. They're focusing so much on Sarah's dress that there's not a whole lot of detail shown of his costume. I also noticed that the coattails were separate from the jacket itself, and this was because they'd ruffled the fabric down so that he'd have more swoosh in the back. However, I want my coattails to be all one piece with the jacket, so I will have slightly less swoosh, but I will be putting an elastic in the back to pull the fabric in, having made the coat slightly too big for me, giving myself some wiggle room with weight change. Let's walk through all of the pieces that I will need to make, have already bought, or will eventually create. Let's go from head to toe. Firstly, I mapped out the bedazzled collar, the very high villainous collar. I plan to possibly put Warbler in this collar to get it to stand as high as it does, making it so that it is removable and I can wash the whole costume without thermoplastic being inside the collar. Otherwise, I'll use some very sturdy interfacing, but I think this requires more structure. The brooch was something I was considering buying, but looking through my beading supplies, I can likely make something similar, so I will be making that piece. The ruffle collar, I actually already have material for that. Material with ruffles built in, so I can do less ruffling myself because I bought this fabric for a similar ruffle collar on my prom dress. That never actually happened, so I have plenty of material left over to use for Jareth. And the whole collar piece, I want to make it a dickie so that it'll be under the coat just enough that I am not sweating to death. Because this will be a very hot and heavy costume, and if I'm wearing it at a convention, I want to wear as few layers as possible. Next, I labeled the silver cummerbund. I don't have anything officially for this, but I have plenty of silver fabric and beads in my stash, so I can figure something out. With bringing in the cuffs, this also includes all the bedazzlement that is on the collar and down his back. The fabric that all the bedazzlement is attached to is very lacy, spiderwebby type material, so I have thrifted a lacy spiderweb tablecloth as well as various other types of lace to mishmash within that so it's not all one obvious spider web, because his pattern isn't necessarily a spider web and there's a lot more texture in there, so layering laces will get me that texture. For all the beading, I bought a massive necklace with a whole bunch of silver beads on it, and I have a decent supply of rhinestones left over from making my beauty pageant Georgia bodysuit, as well as having a bunch of beads within my beading stash, so hopefully I will have enough beads and rhinestones for all of this work. Honestly, the beading will take longer than making the coat. For the black leather pants, I actually do have black pleather pants. However, I do believe I will be wearing this costume with some black skin-tight slacks so that it's not nearly as hot. I already mentioned the lining, so materials vary. For the base of the coat, I thrifted a massive amount of this very pretty textured blue fabric. Please let me know if you know what this fabric is called. I have 12 yards of it, and I'm going to use as much of it as I can because I love it. And I want more. Then for the boots, I don't actually have any black knee-high boots. I have some very dark brown pirate boots, or I have my black go-to combat boots. I feel like either one would work for the cosplay, but I have to see what will work best with my version of the cosplay once I get it all together. As for the wig, even though I bought a new wig for this cosplay, I believe I'm going to be using my original wig for this costume. My original wig is actually a Garth wig, which I have altered with Dollar Tree hair. I think I'm going to be using that one for this wig because then I can damage it more and put a whole bunch of sparkles and blue coloring in it without worrying about it. The new wig I will likely put towards doing another Dance Magic version, which was what I had originally used the first wig for. I also would eventually like to make his little devil mask. And that is about how far I've gotten on planning Jareth's costume. I've already filmed a couple live streams of the build progress on this costume, so you can check those out in the link above or in my description. I would greatly appreciate those subs, comms, thumbs, and a ding. You can also support me on Ko-fi or Patreon, just in case I might need a little more beading work going on. I also greatly appreciate you just hanging out with me here on YouTube. And welcome to the madness.